everyone, my name's Katrina and today I'm going to be sharing with you some book recommendations for things to read in autumn. It feels a little weird recommending books to read in autumn just because for so many of you guys it is springtime, but today was actually the first day that was really nice and cool and actually felt like autumn was here in Sydney, so that had me very excited. So I thought this is the perfect time to post this video. But for any of you living in the Northern Hemisphere, if any of these are books that you would like to read in autumn, you can just get them on your radar now and start preparing ahead of time. To start out, I thought I would do a very quick rundown of what the perfect autumn read for me would be, and it could include any of the following things. The story itself may be set during autumn. The setting could feel very autumn-esque. For example, the weather could be really cold, rainy and gloomy. The tone of the book may be grim. There may be some darker themes to the book. Often they are really atmospheric and moody, paranormal, fantasy or mystery novels, or they're just really great immersive books to hunker down with when the weather is turning sour, and they remind you that even with the cooler temperatures and rainy days, there is still so much adventure to be had. So without further ado, let's jump into my autumn reads recommendations. I'm going to start out with the Kingkiller Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss, and this is a partially superficial reason. First and foremost, this cover of The Wise Man's Fear, which is the second book, looks so very much like it's in autumn, like with all of these browning leaves. And then the new collector's edition for the first book, The Name of the Wind, also very much looks autumn with the color scheme, with like the golden and the red, but also the orange leaves on the cover as well. The whole aesthetic is very much autumn. But in terms of the actual content itself, it does have some really slow and pondering moments. It is a very character-driven novel. The whole series is essentially about a man telling his life story, and there are really fantastical elements as well, with magic and some mythical creatures. Also, considering its size, it's the perfect book to just read and get sucked into on a gloomy day. Next, I'm going to recommend the Sherlock Holmes stories by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and my primary reason for this is because of the English weather. Since an English summer is basically an Australian autumn, every time that I read a book set in England or even Scotland and Wales as well, I just either think of the stark winter with lots of snow, or it feels very much like autumn to me, just because the weather, what I'm used to here, their summers do not compare. The Sherlock stories are also mysteries, which is one of those genres that I think just works really well in the autumn time, and some of the stories in here in particular do have some kind of gloomy settings as well. The Hound of the Baskervilles, for example, is set on the moors, which is just super grim and bleak and ominous. A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This follows Kell, who's able to move between parallel Londons. So similarly, we have this English setting, though it's not entirely these Londons of England that we know. The majority of Londons to me feel very suitable for this kind of weather, except for Red London, which is brimming with magic, and that just feels very colourful. And in contrast, we have Grey London. The name itself sounds extremely bleak, but there is no magic here. There's also White London, which kind of, to me, feels a little more like winter, but I think could really still work with this. It does have a very bleak and dangerous landscape that is the result of an abuse of magic. And then there is Black London, which has just been cut off from the rest of them. So that sounds like a deep, dark, dangerous hole. Abyss. House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. The framing story for this one is a tattoo artist stumbles across a manuscript that is about a documentary that apparently doesn't exist. This documentary is about a house that is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, and there's some creepy, freaky things going on here. The book is filled with documents such as pieces from the manuscript, letters, footnotes, some really oddly formatted text as well that plays with space on the page. This is a book that you'll be spending a lot of time with because it is a large book. It has all of the footnotes that kind of disrupt the structure of the story. There's also appendices, so you're flipping back and forth. There's a lot of things that you're doing when you're reading this book, and in addition to that, it's a bit of a freaky book as well. So it is perfect for those rainy days where all you want to do is just snuggle up with a cup of hot cocoa. And this is definitely one that I would recommend reading during the day, because while I was reading this, I had a nightmare that developed into sleep paralysis. So that was a terrifying time. I've only ever had nightmares or sleep paralysis like once or twice in my life. So having them both at the same time during the period I was reading this book, it's not for the faint of heart, folks. Every Heart a Doorway and Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Seanan McGuire. These are the first two books in the Wayward Children series. I'm not including the third one in this recommendation because it is very whimsical and very colourful, especially in comparison with these two, so it doesn't quite fit with the vibe we're going here. These are about a bunch of characters who at some point have stepped through a doorway into a fantastical world. And in these worlds they feel very at home, and for whatever reason they're drawn back to the earth as we know it, and they're struggling to adjust. Book one has a murder mystery, which is one of those genres I really like to read during autumn. We do have some kind of odd and eerie characters that we meet as well. And then Down Among the Sticks and Bones has a very gloomy moors setting as well. Some of the elements of this book also feels very reminiscent of Dracula and Frankenstein, if that gives you a better idea. With those more supernatural elements, autumn just feels like the perfect time to read them, especially if your autumn falls around Halloween time. The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. Blue Sergeant lives with her clairvoyant mother and some of her other clairvoyant relatives and friends, and she's been told her entire life that when she kisses her true love, he will die. This was such an atmospheric and moody book, and I think the audiobook definitely helped with this fact. The narrator had a southern accent, so it really rooted it in that setting. And this is also a great autumn read with the paranormal elements, with the clairvoyant characters, the dead spirits and spiritual energy, things like that. The Diviners by LIbba Bray. This is another murder mystery, and this is set in 1920s New York. We follow a bunch of different characters. One of them is Evie, who has a supernatural ability, and she uses that to help solve this murder mystery. Again, with this one, I listened to the audiobook and the narrator did such a great job of capturing all of these different characters' personalities and voices, like using different accents. It felt like I was in 1920s New York while I was listening to the audiobook. And in this one we have a lot of paranormal elements as well. We have people with supernatural abilities and ghosts. Also, part of the setting is in the Museum of American Folklore, Superstition and the Occult, aka the Museum of Creepy Crawlies. The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. This is about a little boy named Bod who's being raised in a graveyard by ghosts. Very strong autumn vibes here with the eerie graveyard setting, the ghosts, the suspense and the mystery. The mingling of life and death in this book as well almost makes it feel like it's set in a limbo between the two. And to me this feels a little reminiscent of the fall season because it marks this in-between stage where nature is caught between vibrancy and life, and then this long winter slumber that looks like death with all of the leafless trees. My final recommendation is the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. There's various reasons why I'd recommend this as an autumn read. First of all, the fact that the school year starts at the beginning of autumn just situates it very, very nicely, as well as the fact that this is set in Britain, so having that setting with the weather, like with Sherlock, feels very much like autumn or even winter to me. This is definitely one that I would also recommend during winter, so you'll probably see this popping up in my winter recommendations video as well. But also the fact that this is just a familiar and cozy story. It's something that I love to read on a cooler evening with a hot beverage. Oh, that just sounds like paradise to me. So those are my autumn book recommendations. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'd be very curious to hear about the types of books that you like to read in the fall season, so leave those down in the comment section below. That's all that I have for now. I'll see you very soon with a new video, but until then, I will talk to you in the comments. Bye!